It's showtime. We are live. Dave, welcome to another exciting episode.
Thank you. So excited to be back.
Dave, we always get on here. We talk about retirement. We throw a million questions at you. How are you feeling this week?
I'm okay. You may notice I got a new haircut this week. I'm not sure I'm excited about that, but I guess it's all part of aging. My kids have all been giving me a hard time, thinking that I should have left a little tiny bit that was up there on, but I guess time will tell. Maybe I'll succumb to what their thoughts are, or maybe we'll just go all the way here soon.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. I'm losing some of my hearing. I mean, definitely different from you. I'm losing my hair, and my wife says I really mainly have selective hearing. So I'm not sure what that means.
Yeah, it's definitely a process as we age, and it probably is one of those. My grandfather, my wife's grandfather, was that way. He could hear everybody and anything around him, but when his wife spoke, it was like everything just got shut off. That he didn't want any honeydew jobs, nothing else. So he'd act like he couldn't hear what she was saying.
That's awesome. And I want to again welcome everyone that's joining us live and those on replay. Welcome as well. We already have Jeff coming on, and he's excited to be here, and he loves your new hairdo as well.
Yeah, like I say, it's going to take me a while to get used to it for sure on my end. It's something a day I wish would have never came.
Yeah, I get it. And again, if you're here live, please go ahead and submit your retirement questions. Let us know what you're thinking about. Maybe go through some scenarios with us. Talk about anything from reverse mortgage, Social Security, Medicare. There's so many things we're talking about, Dave. We even get into the LIRP, which is the life insurance retirement plans. We have so many things we talk about on the show. And again, we haven't talked about this for a while, but Dave, why do we do this? Why do you come on and answer all of these questions?
I really want to help people straighten their retirement out. We've got people that have planned, but the plans, many of them aren't structured correctly. And we've got those who have failed to plan, and they really need some help to get it down the right path.
And I love that we can do this and offer that. And I'm really, really jealous, even though it's 10 a.m. here, that Corey has some Chick-fil-A lunch. I'm like an hour away from a Chick-fil-A. So it makes it really hard when I see that.
Yeah, I was laughing the other day. So my daughter interviewed at Chick-fil-A, just a quick funny side story. She interviewed there. They gave her the job. They gave her a name badge, gave her all the swag, everything else. And then they never called her to put her on the schedule. So I joked with her. I said, why don't you just show up with your badge one day over at Chick-fil-A and tell them you're ready for your shift and see what they do to you?
That's that's awesome. You know, I love Chick-fil-A. I'm one of those like diehard fans. And Dave, we've talked about it many times, but it just is good food.
Yeah, she was kind of excited because she's only here for a couple of months, and so he thought, "Hey, it'd be a perfect job." But yeah, then they just went silent, and I found that very odd for a company that's so organized. They wouldn't at least say, "Hey, look, we've changed our mind. You're not here long enough." But she has again everything to go to work, including her mask. She can go to work. She just has no schedule.
Wow. Well, again, everyone, thank you so much for being here. So excited to have so many of you with us. We're going to dive into our first question here, Dave. So again, just to let everyone know, we go through, we have a series of questions that I ask you, and then we also have those tuning in live to go ahead and submit their questions. And Dave, we're going to start off with Karen. If income level is high, there is no contribution allowed into Roth IRA. What is the other choices?
Karen, there's a couple of things that you can do. Number one is you could do what's called a backdoor Roth IRA, where you put the money originally into a traditional IRA and then you immediately convert it over to a Roth account. There are some strict rules in doing that. I would definitely recommend that you get an advisor involved before you make that decision, especially if you've got other IRA assets, because the transition may not work exactly as you would think, where you're taking maybe the $6,000 you put in, you think you're just going to transfer over the six you put in directly. There's some basis issues you got to look at. The other one would be looking at a life insurance retirement plan. We're finding these to be great options for those who have excess money or an inability to put the money into the Roth that they need to, so that they can put those assets in a tax-free environment.
And Dave, talk about like backdoor Roth IRAs. First of all, are those legal?
Yeah, they are legal. Again, there's nothing wrong with it. We're seeing more and more of these because people are understanding the value of getting in a tax-free environment. And again, if the income's too high, like Karen's talking about here, you can't go directly into a Roth. So they've got to go around it some way. And they're using these backdoors Roths to be able to do it. Again, I see some people, I don't think are doing it correct. CR, I will tell you that I don't think they're calculating the basis and everything the way that they should. But again, if they're done correctly, not going to have any issues. You'll be able to do the conversion into there and everything will work the way it should.
And I know this has been brought up because I look at a bunch of these before the show, but can you use it as as a way to dodge taxes?
No, no, it isn't a tax dodging mechanism really structured for you to try to get into the tax-free environment. Many times we have people ask that, it's like, can I be a good citizen and not pay tax? I'm growing all this money tax-free. I'm going to pull out the money tax-free. Well, you can, because you're choosing to pay it at a time when taxes are historically low, and you're paying it on the seed rather than the harvest. You understand that from your side as a farmer. When you look at the stuff that you raise, we planted an acre of corn when I was a kid that we could sell for school clothes. Well, that seed cost us maybe 10, $20. I don't know what it was. By the time we sold all the corn back in the 1980s, it was $1,000+ that we'd gotten that we were able to use for our various school clothes, and would much rather pay it on that $10, $20 we paid on the seed.
Definitely great advice. Dave, I also saw a comment in there that said you were the next Steve Jobs. It definitely has the look. So I like this new look. It's good.
I just got to find me a couple of turtlenecks, I guess. I'm not sure where I'll find those. It's something I've never worn, but I guess I'll just have to get me a few turtlenecks now.
Yeah, exactly.
And
All right.
a bigger wallet. Yeah, and a bigger wallet.
Yeah.
Mine's not going to hold that much money.
Yeah, if you do that, let me know. I'll be over. So Stephen asks, what do you suggest handling the market risk in current IRA accounts due to the 10-year bull market and converting that balance to a Roth at at what are currently high market valuations?
Stephen brings up a very interesting point, and it's one that's talked about a lot because many people do believe that the market's ready for a correction. So they're saying, hey, do I sit here and just wait for the correction before I make the transition? Unfortunately, we can never predict what the market's going to do in the future. Yes, we all have our assumptions, but there's options too to get it into principal protected products to where you can make the transition now at the high rate. And then if things go down, you don't have to worry about it. You've got then an asset that's going to allow you to have it inside that Roth account and never go below zero. So it solves that issue. But if you're just waiting to time the market perfectly to be able to do these conversions, Stephen, you're going to find that you'll probably never do the conversion, and then you'll be stuck paying taxes for the rest of your life, which is going to be a far worse scenario than if you had made the conversion over. And again, too, one other thing I will make a comment on is timing too. You've got to look at the timing of when you're doing this. If you're in your 20s and you're going to convert over, hey, the market will come back. If you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s, yeah, let's look at principal protection products when we do the conversion.
So Dave, let's talk about market risk, because this is the possibility that the funds invested in the stock market probably will lose value if the market's down, and probably one of the primary risks for people in retirement. But how do we eliminate this for those in retirement?
What you've got to do is start going into principal protected products, especially for that income that you're going to want on a consistent basis. These products are designed to allow you to take market upside, but not to experience the market downside. So it takes that 10, 20, 30, 40% risk of the market going down off the table. And if you can do that, it's going to pencil out much better than the guy that loses 30%. Because if you lose 30, now you've got to get far more than 30 to get back, depending on what your rates of return are coming back up. If you're 50% down, you got to get 100% rate of return just to get back to break even. So that can take people 7, 8 years. So he's got a very valid concern. And it's really one of the things we as advisors talk about a lot now is you really want that principal protected income as you're getting into those retirement years. You're right, CR, if that market drops like it did even at the first 2020, if it would have stayed down, that killed many people and would have killed many people's retirement plans. And they would have found 10 years from now, the retirement was looking a lot different than what they expected it to look like.
And Dave, at the Prosperity Guy, we all have different roles. Many of us do different things here, but one of those that are assigned to you is you're a retirement risk consultant. So tell me what that means, because as we're talking about these risks that are happening, tell me how your title and what you really do to help eliminate risk.
Yeah, what my job is to stress test your retirement, to put a bunch of tests on that thing to see what's going to happen. And we do that through our planning. We're going to show you a plan that's going to look just like it would look if you had never met us. Hey, how does that money last? But what happens when I start stress testing that? What if you take Social Security at the wrong time? What if tax rates double? What if you have a long-term care event? What's that going to do to your overall plan? And what's it going to look like? And then we compare those and say, look, if we can eliminate these risks, almost every time we can get you even in a better position than you would have been had you just kept doing what you were doing.
I love that. And again, we have the advisors that we're working with as well. And I think it's very important that we get this planning done and take care of that as well. All right, Dave, my next one I have comes from Rodney. Even if you get to a zero rate, now remember the rules can change in the future.
Rodney, you are correct. We see tax laws change all the time. And my belief is, and history's shown, even with the life insurance retirement plan, that's been very much structured like what your Roth account, how your Roth account's structured when you have a life insurance policy, is those changes are on people coming into the program. Yeah, there may be a day that Roths are no longer an option. There may be a day where life insurance retirement plans are completely changed. I don't see that anytime soon. But yes, the rules can change. What we see is you've got a pool of people that are preparing and setting money aside in tax deferred that's like 5% of the population. We've got a 95% bucket that aren't taking the recommendations or not making the changes. Well, if I'm Uncle Sam, you know what? I'm not going to go after the 5%. That's not going to really net me a lot. And now I've got legal issues because I'm trying to change laws that were structured when they put the money in. For all of you in the tax deferred bucket, there's no law at all. They can't charge you 100 tax on no assumption pay at some point in the like the free situation. You've got to rules you to get free. So it changed, but I would be concerned if I had 95 setting in that tax bucket, what those tax 10, 20 years.
Sorry, Dave, you broke up a little bit on the end there. I'm hoping we're still there and it's not on my end. So what other adjustments can we make if we're looking at this to make sure that we are getting to that 0% tax?
First, we've got to look at what our current tax rate is, where are we at currently, and what does our tax rates look like in the future? And the thing I always tell people is you've got to stop underestimating what your tax rates could be. I met with a guy the other day, and he said, Dave, I just don't buy into the double taxes are going to be double in my lifetime. He's 70 right now, CR, and if you look at his average life expectancy, it's 84. You know, he looks very healthy, and he is. He's won a exercise every day. He's in great shape, so he could easily live till age 90. I can't say from an economic standpoint, from what I've seen, 20 years, I don't think I would dare tell anybody the taxes could not double. You've got a situation 2022, it used to be 2024, now it's 23, it used to be 2026. 2023, we're going to have Medicare go bankrupt, Part A. 2032, we're going to have Social Security go bankrupt. It used to be 2035 because of COVID, it came down. And then we've got this national debt that we expect to be about 60 trillion by 2030. Well, that's 10 years from now. We've got major issues. How do tax rates not change in a 10-year window, let alone a potential 16 to 20-year window that he's got looking ahead of him?
And even if we look at history and how much tax rates have changed, I mean, we were talking just at the last show about Ronald Reagan and what was happening during his, when he was an actor and trying to, in the 80s, make some money there. But how do we, it's really hard because how do we look to the future and say this is not going to happen when history repeats itself?
Yeah, all you've got to do is read the various books out there. They're written by those who understand the fiscal situation of the government. In fact, David Walker comments that our fiscal irresponsibility is the biggest threat facing the United States. It's not China. It's not Russia. It's none of these other, it's not global warming. Our fiscal irresponsibility is going to bury the country far faster. So let's prepare for it. You've got a great opportunity to do so. And this show isn't to scare people and say, hey, America's going to hell in a handbasket and things are never going to work out. But it's to get us ready so that if those risks come, if those changes happen, pretty easy to sit there and feel comfortable. I know you and I come from backgrounds where we store food, we store other resources. So if things happen, and there have been times I've had to use those resources, and I've been very grateful they were there. It limited the stress, the pressure, and the uncertainty.
So, Dave, this is not a doom and gloom show where we go through and talk about all the things that are happening, because I know scaring people really helps sell people, right?
Yeah, I was hoping you'd pop up some zombies or something. We talk about zombie apocalypse or something on here, but no, it is not to scare people. But we've got to be realists. We can't also bury our head in the sand and just say, look, nothing's ever going to happen. It's going to stay the way it's always been, because there's no way it can. Life's not what it was 2 years ago even.
And that's what I appreciate working with you and the other advisors are, because they keep it real. They're not in here to say, "Hey, I'm going to scare you into buying these plans or whatnot," because it has to be something that's best for the person that you're working with. And like you've said many, many times, not all the retirement plans are exactly the same. And if it was, that would be in the same boat as scaring people into buying retirement.
And it really comes down to education, CR. I had an experience yesterday where I was talking to a lady. I've been talking to her now for a couple of weeks, and she is scared to death. She's got money in products that she doesn't understand, and we didn't help her get into those products. Another advisor did, and she's been scared to death. She can't sleep at night. Well, we sat down and went through the products she had. They maybe weren't the exact products I would have picked if we were putting a plan together, but she was not in that bad of a situation, but she didn't understand what she had. The advisor had failed to give her the education she needed to understand what he was doing for her. He was too busy making his commission. So he said, look, let's put these in place. I'll get my commission and you get products. Well, if he'd have done a better job, and that's what we told her, he said, look, go back to your advisor. You're at a point that we're not going to be able to help you much. Go back to that advisor, ask these questions, and force him to take the time to earn the money that he got paid. Take the time so he can educate you on what you have to allow you to sleep at night. And that's part of the problem many people have. They don't sleep at night because they don't understand what's ahead of them. And it's our job really to educate them to a level to where they understand the risks, they can prepare for them, and then be much less stressed as they go into the retirement years.
Exactly. And again, for those watching live, go ahead and submit your retirement questions. We'll go ahead and mix them in with all the other questions we have here. Dave, I think that's such great advice that you're talking about. I mean, we have so many other scenarios we could reference, but let me jump over to Faith for a moment. And she said, for the stock market, life insurance policies, is the beneficiary permitted to choose his or her own stocks or ETFs?
So let's talk about a couple of things here, Faith, a misconception on one. So the beneficiary is not the one really picking any of those stocks. They really have no control. They're the ones that are just going to inherit the policy and the death benefits once you pass away. There's a policy owner, which in theory would be you, and then maybe a spouse, if you got a spouse or children or a charity that's beneficiary. So beneficiary is not going to have any say. Now, from your standpoint, you are going to be able to pick different indexes that they have available. Now, this doesn't mean that you're going to be able to go out and pick Apple stock and Tesla or whatever it is you want to pick. They're going to have a set number of indexes inside of there that you can pick from, but then you have the freedom to pick whichever of those you want. You can pick a portion of all of those. We have recommendations based upon prior performance for most companies, what we would recommend. But yes, you can go in there and make some adjustments. Variable products, you've got a lot more opportunity to pick different markets, but it's not going to be like free for all. Like if you went to Vanguard and just set up an account and, hey, I get access to all kinds of stuff, but you will have freedom on the risks you're going to take in that and the returns that you would be expecting.
And what risk do we face later as we're getting closer to retirement? Let's say we're in our 60s and we're looking at the stock market. Does that really affect us more than when we were, I guess, in our 30s or 40s?
Yes, not so much in the life insurance retirement plans if they're structured as an index policy where you get the floor. Now, if you're in a variable policy where you are taking those higher risks, the volatility will kill life insurance plans because the more the market drops, the more insurance you've got to buy, which is going to become very costly. But it is something we've got to be aware of, especially going into retirement, because those markets drop, but for 5 years going in or 5 years after, your retirement's going to look way different than you expected it to.
All right, Dave, my next one I have comes from John. John says, what death benefit amount would you recommend?
I believe that John's question is coming from a discussion on long-term care coverage. So, if we're talking just overall death benefit or income stream, if you're saying I want one of these policies for a large income stream, death benefit may be much higher than this, or it may be lower depending on your facts and circumstances. What we want when we're talking about the using the life insurance retirement plan for the long-term care coverage, we want about $400,000 to $500,000 of death benefit. Average long-term care stay is going to be somewhere between 2.5 and 3 years. Cost is going to be somewhere around $100,000 a year. So we want to make sure we have plenty there to cover if there's a long-term care event that's happening. And when we take into consideration discounting and everything else from the insurance company, but $400,000 to $500,000 usually is where we try to land these policies if we're only looking for long-term care coverage.
And Dave, I thought this was an interesting question, but I wanted to turn it on the other side because we haven't talked much about this side. But let's say we set up the death benefit and the person who's on the other side, who's still alive after their spouse dies, how exactly should they spend such a large amount of money? Because I feel like that's going to be another issue we're going to have to tackle because you get all this money and you feel like, hey, there's a lot of things I could do, but what should they be focused on?
Great question, CR. And it really varies based upon your age. And we see it vary based upon what happens based upon age. If someone's getting it in their 80s, 70s, 80s, so married couple have been together for 30 years, 40 years, and now one of them passes away and they inherit a large sum of money. Usually there's enough discipline and enough structure there, not usually a problem. They're going to take the money, slowly spend it as they need to. But we see all the time people in their 30s or 40s, maybe even in their 50s, where a spouse dies and the other spouse inherits $1 million and they think, wow, I am so rich right now. I've got all this money. See, that money will go so quick if they don't handle it correctly. They'll go out and buy a new house, new car, buy a bunch of other things, go on a nice vacation. And not that you're not entitled to that, but you've got to realize I've seen people blow through $1 million in about 2 years. And then they're saying, what next? What do I do? That money's gone now. And yeah, I've got a nice house, but that's really the only thing I bought that has any value or chance of increasing in value. Everything else has just been blown.
Yeah, and I bring that up because there was somebody local where I live. They received, I think it was like 150,000 something after somebody died, and it was dispersed out to each family member. But I saw them all just take that money and just go blow it all. And I feel like that's something we need to address as we're looking at this situation. And again, we're not talking we're 60s or 70s. We're talking at a good, ripe 30s and 40s. What we do with that could really affect our future. And I see so many people, like you said, they just go out and buy homes and cars and things, but we need to make sure that we're not only saving, but we're also being cautious on what's coming in as well.
It's the lottery story all over again, CR. If you
Yeah.
look at it, why do lottery winners end up going broke within a couple of years? Doesn't matter how much they have now. Now with the new amounts, I mean, what was the last one, over $1 billion? Okay, if you're getting $1 billion, probably not going to run out of money before you end up passing away. But when we look at the others, we're maybe talking about 5, 10, 15 million. Happens all the time that they go broke, and it's a principle of life. If you didn't learn how to manage money leading into that situation, it's not going to be any better once you get it. I've got a good friend who has been poor her whole life. She's made some of its life's hit her hard. Some she's made bad decisions. She's like, I can't wait to get the lottery. I'd have all that money and life would be great. I'll guarantee you, CR, if I went and gave her $1 million tomorrow, within 2 years it would be gone and she'd be living in the same situation, if not worse, because you have tax effects and other consequences of the decisions you made. And it's same thing with life insurance. Again, you've just got to be very careful if you're inheriting that you look to the future and look at how it could change your future. Yeah, we want to go on trips. Yeah, we want to do things, but delay the gratification and do it as you've allowed that money to grow and do other things. And then you can have much more benefit from what you received.
And Dave, talking about life insurance, Robert asked, can a life insurance company go bankrupt?
Yes, they can. Now, I will answer that with some positive things that can happen if it does. So, yes, an insurance company can go bankrupt. There have been insurance companies go bankrupt over the last 100 years. Now, when that happens, there's a bunch of different fallout mechanisms that will help. One is the state insurance fund is there to step in and help cover those costs. The other one, which is far greater, is you've got insurance companies that will step in and take those companies over, because the last thing an insurance company wants to have is a situation where they can't, to where someone's putting in the paper that a bunch of premiums were paid for decades and then someone passed away and there was no benefit left. It ruins the overall integrity of the life insurance industry because everything's based upon trust. So many times, if the state doesn't step in to level early enough, or there's an issue where there's problem, that other companies will step in and buy those companies out, and then they take those assets and pay those death benefits.
And Dave, who are the companies you work with, and how do you know that they're on the right track and they're not headed toward bankruptcy?
Yeah, we work with 50 different insurance companies. Kind of surprising for many people to realize we work with such a large platform, but we use, there's different ratings out there that you can find. We like the Comdex score, which is a consolidation of all the various ratings you have for insurance companies. But all you've got to do if you're concerned about an insurance company you're working with and their overall financial rating is just look it up online. Type in the name of the company, ask for the financial rating. You'll see from the Standards and Poor's and others how they rate these companies and where they stand.
Great. That's great advice. All right, Dave, I'm going to jump over to Melinda. Is there any similar option to the 72T for those 60 or older?
Let's talk a little bit about what the 72T is. And what you'll find, Melinda, as we go through here, is that there's really no need for the 72T once you get past age 60. So 72T is a little known area of the IRS code that allows you pre-59 and a half to take equal distributions out of your retirement and use it for whatever you want without having to pay the 10% early distribution penalty. Requirements are equal distributions have to be for a period of 5 years or up until age 59 and a half, whichever is longer. But the purpose of the 72T is to help that person who's under age 59 and a half get access to some of the conversion money. So if you're doing a conversion into a Roth, but you don't have enough money in your taxable bucket to be able to cover the tax, it allows you to pull some of that money out of the plan without having to pay that 10% penalty. So it works very well for people who are in their early to mid 50s. But once you get it past 60, you can pull the money out, not be subject to 10% penalty, and just pay the tax yourself. So really no need for it. It fits a very small group of people. But for the people it fits, it can be a great way for them to get into a tax-free environment that they otherwise would not be able to.
And Dave, I know we did a podcast on this. I was trying to look up to see what the episode number was. Is we're already up into episode 44 right now. So we're quite a ways ahead, but yeah, you did an episode talking about the 72T. So for those who want more information on it, they can definitely go back and listen to that.
Yes. Yeah. Like I say, it fits a specific segment. It's kind of like a self-directed IRA plan or a reverse mortgage. I mean, it's something for the right person. It's a great thing, but a small percentage of the population would only be doing these 72Ts.
All right, Dave, my next one, it looks like might be our last one here, is from Steven. Is an LIRP strategy valid for a healthy 64-year-old working to 70?
Yes, Stephen, it is valid. Once we're in our mid 60s, mid 50s for sure for healthy people, mid 60s, we're fine. As you approach 70, those numbers may change. And again, it's all based upon insurance companies and what they tell us. You know, what's your health? Are you in a healthy enough position to where we can get a low fee life insurance retirement plan, where we can get the fees low enough to make it work as an alternative for the other investments you have? But for 64, not an issue. I had someone ask the other day, they were 73. Yeah, once you're getting to that age, we're going to have a really hard time getting you a low fee policy because those insurance costs.
And you've mentioned too that we need to look at maybe our family, the way our family is, and maybe the generations before us of where they are and their health. Because again, obviously you can buy this younger, but if you know that those things are coming, like you've talked about many times with your kidneys and the things that you had, so you buy that earlier because you know that's coming. And if we do that, we're well ahead of the game.
Yeah, and we've also got to look at the longevity too of what we're expecting. And again, realize everyone underestimates their longevity. I shouldn't say everyone, but most everyone underestimates their longevity. So we've got to look at that too, of saying, look, kind of like this guy in his 70s that's saying, I don't believe taxes are going to go up more than like 4 or 5% in my lifetime. Well, and 20 to 30 years in the future is going to look a lot different than 20 to 30 years in the past. Yeah, if we draw back the last 20 to 30 years from a tax perspective, they didn't change that much. You know, we were 39.5%, but you drop back 50. Hey, we were in the brackets that they're proposing now, which could be as high as 70, 80% on the top end. So yeah, we've got to look at that as well, that life expectancy is an important part. And you can find that through your family history as well. I mean, look around, see what uncles, aunts, moms, dads, who's still alive and where you're at in that process.
Exactly. Well, Dave, thank you so much for spending time with us for the last 30 minutes and going through all of these questions. I want to thank those that have been here live with us and those on replay. Thank you for being here. And again, if you have any questions you want to answer, go to theprosperityguy.com. And Dave, if people want to meet with you, so we go through this scenario and they hear about all these great things, they want to talk to you and maybe further this, what's the option for that?
Yeah, best thing is to go to our website, theprosperityguy.com. You can schedule a strategy session with myself where I'll sit down, answer questions you have, and then I'll also talk to you about how we plan and how we work. You'll get a whole overview of the way our office works. So if you want to move forward, you can. If not, you got your questions answered. Hopefully, I met a new friend and you likewise, and we got a chance to spend some time together.
And Dave, we have a lot of different things going on from Facebook Live and YouTube Live, which you're part of right now. We have a LinkedIn show that comes out every week. We've got a podcast, and then you have a lot of webinars. And one particular webinar I wanted to bring up is on February 26th. It's a 4-hour webinar, and you can find out more details on the events page on the prosperityguy.com. And the spots are filling up fast. And once it's filled up, it's closed until we release our next one. But tell me about this webinar and what makes this one so unique.
Yes, a couple of things about it. We've taught it once now, which it was a little challenging for me. We got great feedback on it. Had many people come back and say how much they liked it. I've never taught a 4-hour class. As weird as that may seem, CR, in my lifetime, I've taught since the time I was a teenager in various forms, but it's all been in short spurts, maybe an hour here, 2 hours there. So it was something different for me. We did have a great time, but it is something I do recommend you sign up for because it takes such a deep dive into the topics that we talk about. By the time you leave there, you've got a pretty good understanding of what your retirement should look like. In 4 hours, you can cover a lot of information. And the other thing I would tell people, this one, as I understand, is free. Not going to be the case going forward. So if you want to get in here, get it for without a cost. Now, going forward, it's not going to be thousands of dollars. Please know that. We just want to make sure we're getting people to cover the cost that we have. It does cost us a lot of money to put these things together, so there will be a fee associated with that. But couldn't tell you how excited I am for it and how excited you should be to get that information in a concise period of time where you can come down, spend 4 hours. It zips by. That was the other thing I realized by the time we were done. It seemed like we've been together for an hour and a half, 2 hours, but yet we'd covered all kinds of information.
Exactly. And so I just wanted to bring that up. So that's called The Changing World of Retirement. And again, it has a 4-hour class. You get CPE credit for this, and it's by Dave. And again, we have it on February 26th, and you can find everything over at theprosperityguy.com. And that's where you can go sign up. Again, there's limited spots.
And let me make one comment on their CR in regards to the CPE side. I know it can scare people off. I had someone the other day that was trying to sign up for one of my courses, and they're like, I don't need the CPE. It's telling me I have to be an accountant. Well, this one you're registering on our site, so it's not going to tell you have to be an accountant. But please know that the CPE is only issued for those that need it. If you don't need it, no problem. You just show up. Don't have to worry about that. But please don't let that scare you off. If you're not a CPA or an EA, we do deal with a lot of professionals, but we're here to help anyone we can get to a safe and secure retirement.
Yeah, exactly. Dave, Chantil asked, will it be recorded? She's working that day.
I know you put some recordings out there. I will leave that to you, CR. We are limiting some of our recordings on these classes because as we get to a point that we expand out what we're doing, we do want people to be able to get instant access and be able to answer their questions individually answered. But I guess I leave that to you, CR, what we'll do with this one.
Yeah. And Chantil, go ahead and send me an email at cr@theprosperityguy.com, and we'll work something out. Cause again, we're trying to make this work for everyone. And again, it's very limited. It's really hard to get into this. And then once it's available, it fills up pretty quick, but we do have many other ones coming. We just don't release them quite yet. Cause like Dave said, there's a price for some of those coming in the future. So, but go ahead and send me that.
Yeah, and I think that first one we limited to 50 people, and that was filled like within a day, if I remember correctly. This one we've extended out to 100, and it's probably already halfway filled, and it's only been a day or two on that side as well. So, yeah, they do fill up fast, but it's great information, just a great experience for you to really gain the knowledge you need in a concise period. Now, if you want to go to the other webinars, that's the other thing I will tell you. A lot of the materials taught in other webinars, but it's a whole new slide deck. It's whole new concepts. It's, overall, the concepts in general are the same, but it's a whole new thought process. So don't think that if you've gone to any of our other webinars and you go to this, you're going to be bored to tears because you're like, oh, we're just repeating the same slide deck, only extending it out 4 hours. Not at all. They're completely new slides, completely new thought process.
And I'm with you for 4 hours, so that we can't go wrong there.
Absolutely not. You'll get CR, you'll get myself. We just have a good time. Again, we open all the questions that are there in the chat box. We open it up. We try to keep you engaged to make it a fun, exciting time for you.
Exactly. Again, everyone, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for sticking on the last little few minutes here as well. We're so very thankful that you're part of this show. You continue to support us, and we're very excited just to keep bringing you content, especially about retirement, because there's so many things changing with the new presidency that came in. Things will be changing with that too. We want to make sure we keep you aware of things that are happening. And Dave, I think that's an important piece as we close out to make sure we talk about that.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Just stay abreast of what's going on. Please take time for your retirement this year. I know there's a ton of distractions, but turn off the news. All it's going to do is depress you. Sit down, spend some time planning out how you can eliminate those risks, and then let's start taking some action. Let's spend that time improving ourselves. It's to the point now, most of us aren't going to be able to do much change the trajectory of the country. Yeah, let me get the right word there. The country, we can't change that, but we can change our lives. We can change our families' lives, and we can change those people we have influence on's lives. And that's really what it's all about. Let's do it for ourselves. Let's do it for those we love, so that they can be in a position to where they can have a better life as well, because we made good decisions in our life.
I definitely appreciate that. And again, thank you, Dave, and thank you for everyone for being here. And we'll see you again next week.
See you guys.